Today's episode of DRL is brought to you by Hella Cocktail Company. My guests don't just come to DRL for me. They also come for the cocktails. Luckily, my friends at Hella Cocktail Company have my back. These guys make amazing mixes, from Bloody Mary to Margarita to Moscow Mule. They also make cocktail bitters, my secret ingredient, and now yours too. It's easy to feel like the best bartender in town when every bottle comes with a simple recipe on it. Hella Cocktail Company, bold flavor, real ingredients, hospitality. Mixing it up since 2011. Shop the collection on Amazon Prime or use code DRL online at hellacocktail.co for free shipping. Hello, my lovely listeners. Welcome back to another episode of DRL, where we're talking everything dating, relationships, and love. I'm your host, Tanisha Wood. So last night, Chris and I were speaking about the fact that he has a female friend that he would like to stay with us when she's in town. They're really good friends, super close. They've known each other for a really long time. And I don't have a problem with like platonic male or female friends like staying at our place if like it's fine. Like there's no big deal for me. Now, but here's what I realized in really thinking about this and really digging. So I was like, I'm not really a fan of the idea. Now, again, I've had male friends stay. He's had other female friends stay. Like we like entertaining, not a big deal at all. But this particular friend, I'm like, I just know. Now, here's what happened. So maybe about a year or so ago, she was in town and she stayed at our house. Now, the thing you have to understand about my house is it's very sacred to me. Like my house is like my place. Like I don't care what happens in the world. I just know like I can go into my house and it is a certain way. It is the way I want it. The people I want to be there are there. It smells how I want it to smell. It's clean. It's everything I want. And so my house has always been that way for me. And generally people that I know really well understand that. Like, for example, I had a friend come from San Francisco last year and she just made some tea in the morning and she was like, I know how you are, so what would you like me to do with this mug? Do you want it in the dishwasher? Do you want me to wash it? Do you want it in the sink? And that's just because she knows me. She knows I'm like anal about stuff like that. She knows I'm OCD. Like she understands that, right? And so what I realized is with me, like the way that my home is treated is a respect language for me. I thought of the fact that respect languages exist, but we don't talk about it, right? So like there's love languages where, are you an acts of service person? Are you this? Are you that? But there's also like respect languages. And for me, like for some people, it might be like, you said something about my mama. You just disrespected me. For me, I'm like, you really don't know my mama if you talk about her like that. But for like me, it's like if you're in my home and it's an intimate space, like respect, that's my respect language. So anyway, last time she came, she was just had her stuff all over the place. Like, by the way, there was a whole extra room just for her. So it wasn't like we had you sleeping on the couch, but she had her stuff just all over. She was cooking stuff. There was pots. She was using and I was just like, oh my God, I can't wait till she gets out of here. And that's what it was. And then she had her shoes on and I have a strict like no shoe policy in my house. And I was just like, that's what it is. I don't feel like you respected my home. And it wasn't like she didn't do anything crazy. It's not like she was smoking in the house or like, having a ton of people. It wasn't like that, but it was just like, for me, this is like the utmost place where you can show respect to me. And I didn't feel like she was. And maybe because, again, I didn't know her well enough. And I don't think Chris set up those boundaries or the expectation well enough, because, again, like he has other friends that he's like, how Tanisha is, she's kind of crazy. And it's fine. I don't care. Call me crazy, but like respect my home. So anyway, I like really had to think about it. I was like, that's my respect language, my home. So respect language is a whole new thing I'm coining. Welcome my guest, Sylvia. Hi, Sylvia.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Do you have a respect language?
How you talk to me, I guess. And I'm a joking person. It can be kind of tough because it's like, oh, you can dish it, but you can't take it. I mean, I can, but some people cross the line. So how you talk to me, or if you come for me, or someone who I love. So yeah, I guess something like that.
Yeah. So I'm curious what your guys' respect language is. Reach out to me, let me know, at Tanisha Wood. It's a new phrase I'm coining, respect language. So how you doing, Sylvia?
I'm doing well. I'm good. Yeah? Good.
Dating-wise, right now, are you single?
I am single, yeah.
So you were engaged How long ago? About a year ago?
It's been about a year since the engagement ended. Yeah.
Tell us the start, the middle, the end, all of it.
Okay. So this started July. So I met him online.
What site?
OkCupid.
Okay.
Old school now. There's so many now. It's so crazy. But OkCupid, I just moved to West Virginia. I went there for a residency. I'm a pharmacist, so I did a 1-year residency at a hospital. So I moved to basically the boonies, about an hour and a half outside of D.C. And I was fresh out of another relationship at that point, and that was just crazy. Like, I found out as he was helping me move to West Virginia, I found out that he was talking to another girl. It gets a little complicated because we weren't exactly together. And like literally I'm driving using his phone for GPS because mine died or something. And I'm seeing text messages from the girl. I moved to West Virginia. I'm freshly single. My heart is broken and all that. So I give it about a couple weeks and I jump online. Probably not the best thing to do, but you know what?
I'm a fan of that though. Like, I don't like to necessarily sit at home and sulk in a breakup. Right. For me, I'm like, I might not be looking for a relationship, but I'm like, I just need to get back out there.
And I think that's what I was doing. And I actually had on my profile, I'm looking for friendship that could possibly blossom into more. Those were my words.
Right.
And dudes don't read that. They're
right.
just like, okay.
Let me see them pictures.
Exactly. I don't read words. So I jump online, and pretty immediately in the next couple weeks or so, he messages me and we go back and forth. And I would say probably about a month and a half into us just talking, dating and everything made it kind of official. And he was older than me, like 5 years older than me. So he was kind of, I don't want to say he put pressure on it, but he wanted to be official.
Was it typical of you to go into things, like establish things so quickly, like a month in?
I guess so. Yeah. Given my history. Yeah,
okay.
It doesn't take too much time to know what you want. The thing that got me was how into me he was. I was like, whoa, he's a different kind of dude. Like, if you were to meet him, he was different. He just was really into me. So for example, he would tell me he would get anxious if I didn't call him at a certain time. And for a black man to say that,
right.
Big, 6'1" and all that, to say that, I was just like, oh.
It was flattering in a way.
Yeah, it was flattering because I got off work at a certain time, and if he didn't hear from me within 30 minutes, he's like, yeah, I'd get anxious. So I was like, I never really had that. So it was like, okay, let's do this. Even though, I wasn't 100% into him at that point. I was fresh out of another relationship. My mind was still kind of on him, but I appreciated this newfound attention and all that.
So if you weren't 100% into it at that point, what made you dive into the relationship?
That was it. The attention. Here's a good looking man. Also, I was in the boonies. There wasn't much to pick from. So I'm like, okay. I feel like he felt the same way as far as attractive looking black. Well, yeah, it's let's we go together now. So that's basically, I think, what kind of expedited the process. And then plus he's kind of like a, like I said, at the time I was 28, he was 33. I think he was looking to settle down. And we had a good relationship in general, a very good relationship. We got engaged after a year and a half of dating, and to this day, that was just the best day of my life.
Tell me about the engagement.
Okay, so that was a great day. So I was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. One night it was me, my two brothers, and their wives, and we were just going out to dinner. We were going to Ruth's Chris. I was happy because Ruth's Chris. We were walking, and we hear music. And first it's another song, and then it switches to another song, and it sounded familiar. I was like, and I have video of this. It's crazy. I still have it, but because they were recording, and it changes to a song. I was like, wait a minute, I know this song. Those were my words. I know this song, and he wrote a song for me, and it was that song. But I knew it was that song because he wrote that song for me early in our relationship. So I was like, wait, there's no way. How is this person just sing like, and then I was like, unless he like stole this song, like thinking my boyfriend at the time, like stole this song. How does this random person know this song? And my brothers are around me, like amping me up. They're like, yeah, how do they know this song? And in hindsight, I'm like, y'all are wrong for that. But yeah, so we get closer and I see him, he was playing the saxophone with the song that he, I know, it was so crazy. And that's just not me. I'm just very like low key and all that. So he's there. My best friend is a photographer, Aisha. She's a photographer. So she was there taking pictures. And then her friend was also, and my friend, Candace, was also there taking pictures. And I was just so surprised.
Had you guys talked about marriage prior to this?
We have. And I'd always said, give it at least a year. Because I felt like he was like, ready. I was like, give it at least a year. I feel like that's a good amount of time to get to know somebody and all that. So he's like, all right, I'll wait at least a year. So we had talked about it, not extensively. And actually, we were going to Cuba like maybe a few weeks after that. So I was like, it's going to happen in Cuba. Like,
got it.
In my mind, my guard was down. I was like, it's going to happen in Cuba. Like that would be nice.
And you at this point thought this was the one? At the time, not necessarily looking back.
Right. That's the tricky thing. It's like, I thought I didn't have this profound, like, oh my God, this is my soulmate. This is it. At the time, I was like, this is a great man. And I did love him. Don't get me wrong. I did love him. But I struggle with, even to this day, was I in love with him? Like the difference between, loving somebody and caring for them versus really being in love with them. So I loved him, and I'm like, we can, in a very practical way, I was like, we'll make this work, because I know, I'm like, and that's how I'm like, okay, that's probably, and it's so funny because my friend Aisha knew about the engagement, like him wanting to propose before it happened, and she asked me, she's like, Sylvia, like, can you see yourself with him? Like, let's say she was trying to speak hypothetically, let's say he proposed to you tomorrow, would you say yes? And I hesitated when I was talking to her. I was like, yeah, I would. And like, it was like that versus like, of course I would. Like, he's amazing. And the funny thing is, he is amazing in a lot of ways. And I guess that's a separate point. Like, someone can be so amazing, doesn't mean they're for you.
Right.
So,
but then why move forward at that point knowing, I mean, you didn't know, but you sort of knew. Maybe,
right.
Like, why move forward with it?
I think it was the picture situation, like him being such a great man and loving me so much. And, growing up, I don't know if your mother ever said this, find you a man who loves you more than you love
all
him.
The time.
And that was him.
All the time.
That was him. He was a very loving person, like just extremely like loving person. Anybody who knows him, like he's just a very loving person. So I was like, I'll make this work. Like he had so many other qualities that I loved, hardworking and loved God and loved his family and all that stuff. So I was like, I'll just, make it work. But, and I loved him. Like I said, I did love him, but I don't know. I struggle with, I don't think I was in love with him.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy, but.
You know what though? I mean, I understand.
Yeah.
And there comes a point in life, I think, especially for women, when you get to a certain age.
Right.
It's like, well, I've done a lot of dating.
Right.
And what else is there? Like, this sort of meets everything on the list.
Right.
And that's cool. And that's good. And like, you can definitely make something work with that. But I'm still like a super romantic where I'm like, you have to make my heart flutter. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I know there's some days where I'm like, I can't stand you. I can't even want to look at you. But like, I just have to like, I don't know, want you to the core, like, but yeah, I see the temptation to like go the other direction.
Right. Especially when everything looks so good on paper, like everything professional and all that. And he was good looking, all that. So it all like added up on paper. But as far as like us really having a connection, we didn't have like a deep connection. We had a connection, but it wasn't like, this is who God made for me type thing.
Do you think he felt the same way, or he felt like this is like my person and he was in love?
That's a great question, because I want to say yes. Like you would, especially him. He was a very smart guy. Like to propose to, want to spend the rest of your life with someone and you don't feel that way, especially as a man. Like I would say yes, but at the same time, there's that debate. I don't know if you ever saw like a post on Instagram or something like, oh, do men marry the man or the woman that they love the most, or the woman who's there when they're ready? I don't know if you ever saw that.
Like the taxi cab situation. Like on Sex and the City, they had this this episode, and it was saying that you'll date a man forever, and then he's not ready. But once his taxi light is on, it's the next person that pulls
around
up.
the corner,
right?
Or whatever.
So it's like,
right.
yeah. So it's not necessarily a matter of was he in love with that person, was he not? Did he feel like that person should be a wife? It was just like I'm ready, and
light is
the next person pulled up.
Right. So I mean, I can't answer that with certainty because I'm not him. I'm not in his brain. But in my mind, I kind of like. I don't know if he really, really loved me or if he was just ready, because I know he was ready, but it could be both. It really could be. I'm not sure. And, and I did ask him that, and he, of course, denied it. And he was like, like this was, it was what he wanted at the time. Like that's how he felt. But, people, I'm not saying he was lying, but it's possible. Like, you don't want to admit something like that. Like, I proposed to you when I wasn't, fully in love with you.
At this point, he proposes. Your family's there. He plays the song.
I didn't even finish everything. Yeah, we went on like a boat ride. He had like a little boat ride, and he had a playlist of the songs that I liked, romantic songs that I liked, playing in the boat. And then we went to dinner after that. It was the best day of my life.
Guys, take notes on that engagement.
I'm telling you, he went all out. He rented like a drop top Mercedes, something like that. It was crazy. Like I was in love with the ring. Let me tell you, that was hard
that
to
I
do.
know I was in love with.
Oh, that's sad. That I didn't question. I love that ring. Like I got so used to it. But hey, it's hard.
So then, the engagement happens, and you're excited at this point.
I'm excited, right, and went to Cuba, had a good time there, and all that, and come back, and my lease was ending on my apartment. It was ending soon, so I was like, we should. I wanted to move in somewhere by myself, but then I was also like, we're engaged. We might as well. I had a thing where it's like I didn't want to move in with somebody until I was married. Like that's something my mom kind of.
But how do you know who they are?
Listen, so I talk about this. Like some people say, or somebody can argue, like, okay, it's kind of like a trial period. You can see how it's going before you get married. You live together, see it as a trial period. However, there's a reason I feel like they say like that people who live together before marriage, not talking about you specifically.
No, all good.
Different, strokes for different folks. But like there's, I don't know, some study that's like, if you live together before marriage, there's a higher chance of divorce. But
why do they cite that as the catalyst or as part of it?
Honestly, it might be tied to other things. If you think about it, socioeconomic status, like people who who aren't doing as well financially or whatever, they might live together to save money or whatever. And there are other factors involved. It's not just, we're living together and that's it. You know how these studies can be. Versus like once you're married, you're married. Like we better work this out. We're married. We can't just get up and move. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a little bit different. There's something tying you together. Because otherwise you could just really, if you're not married, you can just go. It's fine. You don't
a New York lease will tie you together.
That's true.
A New York lease is like a marriage. They will hold you for a year at least, and they will tie you together.
Right. See, so that's a whole nother study. But I just had in my mind I didn't want to live with someone unless I was married. But at this point, I was like, we're engaged. We're gonna get married. Let's just do it. So in the area we were in, Winchester, Virginia, there's not too much, inventory there. So as far as like renting. So I was like, I think we should just buy. Like we should just buy a place. Like it'll be much nicer. And I didn't really like where we were, like in rural Virginia. So I was like, if I'm gonna stay here, I want the house to be really nice. I want to come home to a beautiful home. So we agreed to move in with each other, and we bought a house. We had it built together, and that was a whole nother thing because he's an opinionated guy. So I feel like most guys would be like, all right, you can just pick whatever you want, do it. He wanted to be involved.
I need these counters with these cabinets and these floors.
Listen, we never picked a backsplash because we were just going back and forth. I wanted glass, and he wanted glass. I wanted ceramic. It was just all over the place.
Why do you think that was, like, in retrospect? I'm curious. Like, why do you think that was such a sticking point? Like, what do you think that really represented? Because I have a feeling it's not about...
I think it's value because he was really, and I'm sure a lot of guys are big on respect. Me respecting his opinion. Like and he would hate when I would say that, like, most guys don't care what you pick in the house. He's like, I'm not most guys. Stop saying that. Which, okay, touche. I get that. But I think it was more so a respect thing. Like, I want to see if you would value like what I'm saying. Like, I'm not just some guy who's going to go with whatever you want. Like, I have an opinion in this, which made no
And why
sense
was
to
it
me.
so important to you?
Because I like, aesthetics. Like, I like things to look a certain way.
No,
So
I mean, yeah, you do.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's always when it's something like that, when it's something very like, I mean, you can always change a backsplash.
Right.
But like, why did you feel the need to stick so heavily to that and not just be like, whatever, like have your backsplash?
It can also be like me maybe asserting my like significance in the relationship or something. I don't know. Because he's a pretty...
Was he more like the domineering one?
Personality wise, I probably was, but like who he was as a person, probably him. Like he was very big in his university. He was the pusher in the relationship. Like he was very always trying to like motivate me to do stuff. And he's a very spiritual person. So he's always trying to motivate me spiritually. And I feel like, okay, this is an area where I can assert myself because he was kind of the more influential one in the relationship.
Got it.
He was very well read and very woke and all that. So it wasn't
just about the backsplash.
I guess not. I guess not. Never thought about it that way. But yeah, there are times where kind of like the whole Aisha Curry situation. Like she feels like she was taking like she was on the back burner a little bit. Yeah. Because he was kind of like a big deal.
He was like the star.
In that community, I guess. Yes. Because he was at a university and, he had a lot of stuff going on there. So yeah, that could have been a way for me to like assert myself.
And I get that. Like, cause I don't know why in a relationship, like I feel the need to not have the man outshine me. Like in a way, like if we walked into a room together,
right?
I feel like I want to be the star of the relationship. I want people coming up to me first.
Yeah.
And then like he's sort of like my strong not backup, but just like I would feel a certain way if like I wasn't garnering the amount of attention he was.
Right.
And it's not like not so much a jealous thing, but just like,
see me. Like, I don't know, you want to be seen, you want to be acknowledged. So yeah, that's why I really felt where she was coming from.
So you never ended up choosing a backsplash?
No backsplash. Yeah.
So the house, okay, keep going.
I mean, the house was still beautiful.
But with no backsplash at all?
With no backsplash, but it still looked fine. And it sold really quick. So,
I think it's funny that you guys are just like, fine, we don't have a backsplash.
Pretty much. That's what happened.
You're gonna have this grease all over the wall.
Hey, pretty much. That's not my problem. No, actually it was my problem. But, sorry.
That's good.
But so we moved in together. We went back and forth with all that. Like, once you live with somebody and you're creating something like painting, like we got into fights like more frequently because it just makes sense. We're spending more time together.
Right.
So you have more opportunity to have arguments. Mm-hmm. So just slowly, it's funny. It wasn't a super long relationship. Overall, we were together maybe a little more than 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. But slowly we just grew apart. And it's funny. It's like it took us moving in together to grow apart. And
most of the fighting was based around stuff in the house or for the house, would you say, or other things?
It was, just how like, yes, maybe it was based on the house, but there was a deeper meaning to it, like everybody has their deep rooted issues and something little can trigger it. So for him, it was a lot of respect. He didn't feel respected. And I felt like his level of respect that was needed was something I couldn't consistently make. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like people can be like, oh, respect, but what does that mean? Like respect, like for you, it means your house. You know what I mean? For him, it means, I don't know how you...
It also meant his house, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently, which I didn't know. I didn't know he cared so much. But, it just slowly kind of crumbled. And I remember like a kind of definitive moment was I went out of town. I flew somewhere and I was coming back and we were in the boonies. So the airport was like an hour and a half away. Mm-hmm. So my flight didn't land until like 11. I didn't get home until like 12:30 and he didn't like call or text me to see like how everything was going, the flight or anything. And he used to be, like I said, he would be anxious if I didn't call within 30 minutes of getting off work. So for it to change from that to him not, being worried about me driving an hour and a half from the airport at midnight. Mm-hmm. And whereas like he used to be super concerned with my safety. For me, that was just one of the signs that the relationship was kind of, heading down.
Right.
So
what do you think caused that? Do you think it was like a particular thing or just moving in together? Like what was the thing that really sort of just like put it on a downward trajectory?
So I have my theories. he'll deny it, but there was a coworker at his. I know. There was a coworker. And
let's call her Susan.
Yeah, Susan. Oh, that was my mom's name. We're not gonna.
Oh, okay.
We'll call her. Was it Becky?
Okay.
Wait,
was this Becky with the good hair?
That's where that came from, but she's not white, so I don't know.
Oh,
why.
okay.
Let's just call her Becky because it's an easy name. But yeah, and he would, he knew her before. He helped her actually get the job there, and they were, kind of close. And he would say little things that would get me like, oh, like, she inspired me today, and he would say whatever but he was kind of just like that. He was a positive person. So, different people inspired him, but they just developed like a closer relationship. They were both professors, so they would host kind of like discussions like with students and stuff together. And they, when they go to conferences and stuff, because there's like a music therapy association or whatever, like, they would meet up and stuff there. So I do think, and, she was engaged at the time too. Mm-hmm. And funny enough, she ended her engagement in, I want to say like March, April.
Wow.
He ended our engagement in May.
Did you ever meet her?
I did meet her a couple of times. Yeah, she was cool. I mean, listen, I'm so good. Like it's fine. It is what it is. But yeah, I met her. She was cool. She, seemed to like, but also your radar's a little down because it's like, oh, she's engaged. Like,
right.
There's nothing there.
Yeah, she has stuff to lose.
Right. So I never really questioned it too much. It was more so like I would hear him say certain things like, okay, cool, and move on. But so yeah, she ended her engagement, and funny enough, like
before you guys?
Mm-hmm, before we did.
So how did it come to? So how many months after you guys are now living together was it like, we can't do this anymore?
So moved in September. He ended it in May. So it wasn't very long.
Were you surprised? How did he end it?
So it was something we were going through it. Like we were doing premarital counseling through Skype. And, it was crazy. We probably, number one, had the wrong counselor or something, because we would come together for these sessions and then by the end of it just go our separate ways. Like the counselor didn't do a really good job with bringing us together, like tying things up at the end, because when it was over it's like, I hate you, you hate me, we just go our separate ways.
So was this premarital counsel planned before like you guys were sort of going through it? Like was this like, well, we're going to do this anyway because we're getting married?
Okay, so no, it was, the latter. So we're going to go through it because we're getting married. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like planned. We're going to do premarital counseling.
And now while you guys are in counseling, you're like, we just don't like each other.
Yeah. It's crazy because people ask me like, what happened? And I can't like point to something and say like, oh, this happened. He cheated. I cheated. He lied. I lied. It wasn't anything you can point to. It was just a slow crumbling, if that makes sense. And part of it could have been this other, woman. Another part could have just been just the truth coming out that although we loved each other or, I loved him, it just wasn't a true, match, like a true connection there. We enjoyed each other's company and, we did stuff couples do, but it just fell apart. And
so were you guys like roommates at some point during this? Because I can imagine while living together and not like just hating each other, it's like, ugh, you again, you live here.
It was pretty bad. And it's a shame that you are engaged and you move in with each other and then you that was like the loneliest like period in my life for me, is when we're living together. Because he would, he was kind of a workaholic. Sometimes he wouldn't come home until 9, 10, 11 or whatever. So it just felt like we were living two separate lives. Like we had a 3-story townhouse and there were times he would be on the first floor, I would be on the third floor. He would just sleep down there and I would sleep up there. It was very like, alienating in a sense.
And at this point, you guys, I know you're in counseling, but are you talking about it together? Like, here's what I don't like. Here's what I'm mad at. Here's what outside of counseling, like when it's just you two, are you guys discussing any of that at that point?
A little bit, but it really got more intense towards the end because I started getting like just this clarity, like just being honest, like us being honest with each other, being honest with ourselves. And something I would always used to say is he had a hard time you know, as a lot of people might, holding up that mirror to himself. Like a lot of people, it's hard. Like you don't want to see yourself. And I was like, listen, you have to embrace that, because how else are you going to fix something unless you know it's an issue? So he would just refuse to, you know, do that. Like,
now he was a music therapist. Did he ever go to therapy like prior to?
Not to my knowledge. No.
Y'all need therapy. I mean, I think everybody needs therapy personally, but
I recommend that. And then also I wanted him, and this is like towards the end of the relationship when things were really going bad. I told him, like, not even therapy, like, get around a good group of men, like married men, and ask them if things were always perfect. Like I gave him like an assignment. I'm like, did you do your assignment today? He's like, no, not yet. And then he finally did. He talked to 2 married guys, and they both said the same thing. Like, marriage is tough. Like it can't, for them it is. It's kind of like a learning curve. Like you have to learn each other, and it can be a little rough. And I call that kind of like growing pains. Like it hurts, but you're growing. And what's funny is, like, he had that conversation, and they both said how they had their issues with their wives and marriage, but they made it work. But it's funny what people pick from those situations. There's basically confirmation bias. You're going to take the information that confirms how you feel. Yep. So they told them their stories and all that, like, oh, marriage is great, blah, 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 but it's worth it. He didn't listen to the it's worth it part. He's just hearing the struggle.
It's a struggle. There's some growing pains.
Right. And he remembered that very vividly. He gave me their stories of specific instances where they were struggling and all that. And I'm like, okay, but what else?
Where are they now?
Exactly. They're married still, aren't they? They have kids, don't they? So he picked what confirmed what he was feeling, and which led to us not being together.
Now, it sounds like at that point, you still wanted a marriage.
I did.
With him. And it sounds like maybe he was going the other way.
Definitely. Yeah. And, you know, I don't think he wanted to admit it. Like, I told him at one point, look, the ball is in your court. I do want to make this work. I think we really could make this work. But, you know, I'm not going to do this alone. So I need you to, you know, come up with an answer. And he'd be like, okay. And I wanted like a specific deadline. I'm like, okay, by next week, this day. He's like, okay. And that day would come, and he would want more time. He wanted to...
You gave him a deadline to decide what, if he wanted to get married?
Well, not even that. If he wanted us to keep trying to make it work.
Got it.
Type thing. Because, like, I was important for me to differentiate that. Like, if you want us to go back to counseling and try and make it work, not necessarily get married.
Right.
So he just kept pushing it until...
So every week it was like, I don't know if I still want to work on this week. Okay.
And he would just keep pushing it. And then one day, like, I was like, no, like, this is enough. Like, this is my life. Like, you can't just, you know, have me on some
a to-do list that you push off.
Right. And so he never really said the words. I just inferred it. And he basically kind of confirmed it. Like, he never just said, I don't want to be with you.
So how did that conversation happen?
I remember. We were sitting on the couch, and it was basically like, listen, what do you want to do? And looking at his eyes, like, what do you want to do? And he wanted to push it off again. And I was like,
I'll let you know next week.
Right. And it was like 2 days. It was like, he wanted 2 more days. I'm like, no, like, we need to know now. Like, another payment was due on that wedding deposit. We already put $2,000 down, and I was like, listen, we need to know now. And he was just, and I was like, I said something to the effect of like, oh, your silence is the answer. And me being all dramatic, took off the ring and put it. And honestly, I went upstairs and I was like, dang, I should have kept that ring.
Yeah.
That's another story. I got the ring back. But yeah, and that was basically it. And then from there.
And what did he say? Like, you got all dramatic, you threw down the ring?
And that's another, he didn't do anything.
He was just like, okay.
He was a very verbal person. Like, in arguments, he would be the one to come to me and be like, no, we have to fix this type of thing. So for him to respond like that, in my mind, I was like, okay,
he's done.
He's done.
Yeah.
And, it sucked. It sucked at the time. But
so at that moment, when you threw the ring, you go upstairs, did you realize, like, after I guess maybe you sort of waited, like, he'll come up here, and he never came, like, did you realize, like, this is actually done?
No, I think there's a piece of me, especially because we were still living together and all that. There's a piece of me is like, no, this can't be it. Like, this isn't it. And a couple days later, we had another conversation, and he was like, no, like, Like, cause I was asking him, I was like, are you serious? Like, is this really it? And that's when he was like, I just, and that was something he did. Like he made things like big. He's like, he called this like an insurmountable, like our issues, like insurmountable. And I'm like
they were
to him, I guess.
No, but they were really though. And like now looking back at it, it's like, it's an insurmountable issue to make yourself feel about somebody how you don't.
But okay, be honest with that. Don't say other things, because he wouldn't say that. He would be like, oh, our differences or what I want and you want, that he called that insurmountable. I'm like, that's not insurmountable.
Got it. So you like this backsplash, I like that backsplash. It can never work.
Right, exactly. He blamed those things. I'm like, just call it what it is. Like, you don't want it to work. Like, that's what it is. You don't want it to work. Like, you're not there. So because I think he had an issue with admitting like when he's the one who did something wrong type thing. Like he didn't want to take on that responsibility or whatever. So, but man, like I felt it there. Like it
wow. Even though it felt like maybe you weren't in love, like you still were invested and like, exactly. I'm going to make this marriage work and like, we're going to grow together.
And you get used to that picture. You know what I mean? Yep. You have a picture in your mind at the time, what was like 30, 29, something like that. And it's like, okay, I'm on track. Like I have my, I'm on track to get it, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So all that is
the
shattered.
Timeline.
I'm telling you, it's real. I tried not to do it. And now I've kind of, I'm less worried about it, but like at the time it's like, okay, well, we
can have kids in 2 years.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll do it. So it's like all that's out the window. And I think that I was mourning that more than the end of our relationship, which is a sign in itself. Like,
yeah.
Like
now I don't get my kid in 2 years. Exactly. And now I don't. Yeah.
Right.
So how was it when you guys stayed living together?
Yeah.
Why did you guys decide to do that?
Because of the situation, I knew immediately, like, I wanted to leave because we were in rural Virginia and, I have family here in Dallas and, the line of work that I'm in, like Texas is good with healthcare. So I was like, I'm going to move to Texas. So until I get that finalized, we'll just make it work here because I don't want to move somewhere else, stay there a couple months and move to Texas. Like, let's just, you have your side.
You have your floor, I have mine.
And that's what it was. I stayed in the master bedroom and, it was his bed and everything. So I felt a little bad because it was his huge bed. But I stayed in that room and he would sleep either like on the couch, which he liked to do. So on the couch or in our guest room. So it was just like living separate lives. And, it was hard because it's just, you're physically in the same house with someone, but you feel miles away.
Were you guys speaking or what were the conversations like during that time?
It was very just superficial conversations like, oh, did you hear about, this new album and blah, blah, blah. And then
so you guys just avoided the issue altogether.
I mean, at that point we were broken up. So it was like, what,
But there was no talk of like, what happened, maybe getting back together, maybe like dissecting things.
Not getting back together, but there were definitely, and I'm going to be fully honest, I had, little episodes of anger. Like I was angry. Like I said some hurtful stuff because I was angry and he's a nice guy. Like he would try to be a little hurtful. It was like, oh, that was cute. Like
your hurt does not match mine. Exactly. Look what I can do.
And I say this, women, we have the power of the tongue. We really do. Because I feel like we are, I don't know. It sounds bad to say we're meaner than guys, but I feel like, I don't know, maybe.
When a woman is mad, she will cut you with her words.
I said some hateful stuff. I said some really bad stuff. And I ended up apologizing, later, but at the time, like, you deal with rejection, how you deal with it. Mm-hmm. So I was dealing with that feeling of being rejected, especially given the nature of how we got together that, I wasn't really feeling him that much, but I gave him the chance. And then you're going to be the one who ends the engagement.
Oh no, I am this.
Yeah. And then I was just hurt, just the whole process of, you go to my family, you kind of ask them for my hand in marriage in a sense. Like he talked to my dad and my stepmom, and you go through all this, you plan this elaborate, proposal, and you buy this, whatever $1,000 ring.
And for what?
And then it just crumbles over what? Something that you can't really point to. It's just,
I think maybe that's what was bothering you more than anything was one, the rejection. Yeah. And then number two, you feeling like he's not being upfront with why he's doing this.
Right.
Because that would frustrate me so much. Like if you are going to do this, like I need to know why.
Exactly.
I need an exact, honest reason now.
Right. And the thing is, he was a writer. So like, meaning like he would send me these really long Facebook messages, or he would write like Word documents and send it to me. Like he was just I don't know.
But whatever you got to do, write it down.
He did. That's the thing. It was 4 pages of why he ended things.
I'm sending you a 4-page letter of why I'm breaking up with you.
He literally did. And the funny thing is, even after that, I was like, wait, what?
So what did letters like that say?
It was basically saying how...
Talking about backsplashes?
No, that was not in there. But... It was just very like all over the place. It wasn't like something I can be like, okay, that's why he ended it. That's why it was just like him feeling like we weren't aligned, that we didn't necessarily want the same things, even though we did. We just went around about it different ways. Like I said, he was a very spiritual person, and I feel like he had in mind like how we would look, and it wasn't starting to look like that. So he's like, okay, like I'm out.
What was starting to look different for him?
I think a lot of it may have been on the spiritual side. We're both Christians, but he was a very
very devout,
passionate, devout Christian. And I think that probably had something to do with it. Like there were times like he would really like, for example, okay, so in the Christian world, there's something called like just, laying hands and being able to heal somebody. Mm-hmm. So that was one of his goals. He wanted to one day be able to lay hands on people and heal them. And for me,
like when they do the thing when they're like, you're in a wheelchair and now you can walk.
Yes, now stand. Like, yeah, he wanted to be able to do something like that because he and that's a very much, I'm not doubting that. I've yet to see it, but I know that happens, but he wanted to be able to do that. And I couldn't really connect with that. I didn't know what to say to that. I was just like, all right, cool, babe.
You got it.
Right.
Help me out if I can't walk ever. Like, you got it. Like,
exactly. So we couldn't really connect completely.
But did you ever dive in on stuff like that? Like, why do you want to do that? Right. Why is it important for you to do that? Like,
right.
Why? And it usually drills down to like, well, one time when I was 5.
Yeah. It goes all the way back. And there's a reason. And honestly, there probably is something like that for him. We all have, our childhood issues and all that. So, I think with him, I don't want to put too much of his business out there, but I don't know if anyone on his side is going to listen to this. But, he had, issues with his parents, like his dad. I feel like he never felt good enough. Like his dad, even though with all his accomplishments, he has his, his PhD and he had a successful business and he was a professor. Like, I feel like he never fully got that recognition from his dad. So I feel like for him, so not to sidetrack, but another thing he had with us is not feeling appreciated by me. Mm-hmm. Although I would express my appreciation, it wouldn't be enough for him. And I think that had something to do with possibly his father. Like, he felt like he was doing all this and his dad really never gave him the recognition that he wanted. So maybe his need or his cup of appreciation is bigger than the average man's. Because he never got it as a child.
Right.
Even as an adult, even with his accomplishments as an adult, he never fully got that, the accolade or whatever from his father.
And those things are so important to understand though.
Right.
Like, cause it doesn't make sense to us. It's like, I just told you thank you 5 times.
Right.
Like, why is that such a big deal? Like,
right.
Like understanding like where that comes from, like helps us give people a little bit more grace. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And I understood it. So it's like I tried to work with him because I understood like, okay, like knowing about how his dad is and all that. So and grace is such an important word because it's so important. Like when you love somebody, like that's a part of love. You give them grace. Mm-hmm. Like you forgive them for things that, upset you because it's like, okay, I love you. Like it's just what comes with the territory. So I felt like his cup for appreciation was bigger than what I can fill.
Right.
And, because I would thank him. Like when we moved into the house, he was a very like a handy guy too. So he put up the ceiling fans, he put up our chandelier, he put up our, what are the pendant lights on the kitchen counter, like the island, the pendant. He did a lot of and I would thank him, but he didn't feel like it was enough, like what else. And, I tried to meet him halfway because I understand that. And the analogy that I used was like, okay, let's imagine that I cook a couple of times a week, but one day I make Thanksgiving dinner and you thank me in the same way that you thank me for me cooking twice a week. Those little meals. No, I expect a bigger sign of appreciation. I cook Thanksgiving dinner. So I think for him, from what he was telling me, I was thanking him as if it was like a normal, like, oh, thanks. But like he spent a couple hours, 2-3 hours putting up, fans and all that.
Right.
So,
and it seems like maybe he did those things specifically for like your adoration and appreciation. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, they needed to be done, but like, this is the gratification that I'm going to get from it is not like, oh, we have a ceiling fan now. It's like her showing me such appreciation and such thanks.
Right. Yeah, very much so. I feel like men, they need that. Like it makes you feel like a man, like, oh, I did this. My woman appreciates me and blah, blah, blah. And, and I could have gone harder. Like I could have done more, but I just felt like,
you weren't in love. Like maybe you would have gone harder had you been in love.
Or is it just me? Like, I appreciate it. Thank you. But I'm not going to, bow down. I'm not going to, and also this is our house. It's not like you're doing this for me.
Right.
Like we both bought, and a lot of things I bought myself, but like we both bought the fans and the chandeliers and all that. And now you're putting it up in our house.
Right. So you were like, this is just a part of the process of building this house.
Because if you didn't do it, like we would pay somebody to do it.
Right.
So while I did appreciate it, I also wanted to be realistic. Like you can't expect me, or I hope you don't expect me to, stop the world every time you do something.
like every time you do a dish.
Yeah. Like let's be real. But, I did appreciate him. He was a man of many hats. He did a lot of stuff and I appreciated him, but possibly I could have expressed it more, but hey.
So at the point that you guys, were broken up and living together, how long did that last?
So broke up in May, moved out in September. So about 4 months.
Wow.
And, so part 2 to that story, in about August, found out he had leukemia because he, wasn't feeling very well and all that. And they checked his labs, and with leukemia, his white blood cells were over 100,000, which is, typically it's anywhere from like 3 to 11, and his were over 100,000. So it was, basically at the ER, which they're not supposed to do, they basically told him, you must have leukemia. Like without confirming it, they've seen it before, and I wish they didn't do that, but that's what they did, and took tests and all that, and he had leukemia, and he's still in the hospital right now getting treatment. So
how did that change? I guess the dynamic in the house at that point, like were you like, damn, maybe this is like a sign that we should stay and heal? Like what were you thinking when you found that out in terms of how the relationship would be affected?
So for me, it was kind of the opposite. It was like confirming that we weren't supposed to work. I hate to say this because it sounds selfish, but for me, I'm thinking like, okay, imagine if we were still together and I found out he had leukemia. I'd have to stay, of course. I would stay. It's not even I have to. I would stay, help take care of him. And, all, life would be completely different. Like being in that rural area, things were not close. The hospital was an hour and a half from our house. And I still worked in West Virginia. So that was like, I'd have to go to work and then drive 2 hours really from West Virginia to go, visit him in the hospital. So it just would not, it would have been like a very tough situation for me. But, I recognize that's not all about me, but, I'm living my life. So I'm going to think about it from my perspective. But yeah, in my mind, I was like, this is just confirmation that this was not supposed to work. And everything happened the way it was supposed to happen. Like if it were something that, oh, Sylvia, you're not this enough, you're not that enough, I might try and fix it so that we could still be together. But the fact that I couldn't point out what the issue was between us, I couldn't fix anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because all he had to do was leave a little crack in the door and I would try and slide in there. You know what I mean? Try and slide. But he didn't leave a crack. He shut the door.
So after he was diagnosed, how did he start to act different? Like, was he like, maybe let's try, like, what was his perspective on the relationship now that he was diagnosed with the leukemia?
Right. So he never came home after that first day of like going to the ER. From the ER, he went to the hospital and then he was admitted. So he never came home. So there was no chance for him to come home and for us to have a heart-to-heart or anything.
So you
like
guys
that.
really didn't even, I suppose every conversation after that was just either about his health or logistics.
Yeah, because things just became so sober. Like, you could possibly die from this. He's not. He's doing well. He's, responding to treatment. But like, things just got so real. And I'm just like, let me stop, hating you for whatever reason. Let me stop doing all that. Like, I just want you to be okay. Mm-hmm. In my mind, I'm like, I'm still getting out of here, but I just want you to be okay. So, I had a moment, went to the hospital, broke down. I cried. I apologized for all the stuff I said, because I said some hurtful stuff because I was hurt.
Right.
So
hurt people hurt people.
It's true. It's true. I said some really spiteful stuff. So I apologized for that. He forgave me. And, it is what it is. It was meant to happen the way it happened, everything.
So when you had finally moved out, he's still in the hospital, like, how did you feel? Like, because now it's like we haven't been together for a while, but now I don't have those attachment or ties.
Right. Honestly, and I always say this is also another sign, like, I was okay. Like, I think it's because I had that confirmation of this wasn't supposed to be. This wasn't meant to be. And then him, being diagnosed with leukemia a few months after, like, I was like, oh my gosh, like, imagine if I was still there in a place I did not want to be, rural Virginia. I did not want to be.
Going through the stress of the health.
And the job I had, the hospital I was working at, I mean, they're real good people. They're just not for me. So like, just getting out of that situation was really the best thing. But, yeah, like it was just crazy, like a whirlwind to think about.
What is your relationship like with him now?
It's pretty non-existent. I would say, like, we spoke about a month and a half ago around our birthdays. His birthday is March 23rd. Mine's March 25th. So we spoke around there just to kind of catch up, see how he's doing and responding to treatment. And, he was doing well. He's actually expected to go back to teaching in the fall.
Oh, good.
So, yeah.
I'm glad
like
he's like recovering.
Yeah, he is. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty like non-existent at this point. And I don't know. It's like, as long as I know he's doing okay, I really don't feel the need to like get involved.
Right. Or
maybe
create another relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not so good with the whole friends with exes thing. I'm just now like becoming friends with like an ex from like 6 years ago. Like, you need time, like,
right,
to wipe all that out.
So whatever happened with the ring?
Oh man. That ring. Beautiful ring. I sold it.
You sold it?
I sold it on like Facebook Marketplace. Yeah.
Did you sell the ring purely for financial reasons or for other reasons?
I would say both. I was in the process of moving. So yes, I needed the money, but it was also like, I don't, what am I going to do with this? Like, and it was probably a little bit of spite in there, to be honest. Like, yeah, like, this is my ring and you gave it to me. So why not? You feel some type of way about that? Like,
no, I don't feel a way about it. I just think like, was curious if it was just like, look, I just needed the money right then. Or if it was like, I have to let go of the thing that is physically manifested from the thing I wanted, but didn't get her.
Right. Right. I would say it was a bit of both. Like, it was definitely a bit of both. Because, when he gave it back, there were sometimes I'd still put it on my finger. I'm like, oh, like, so I wanted to kind of just get rid of that too. And, it was just so crazy to think like something that meant so much at one point meant nothing. Like, I just want to get rid of it. Isn't that crazy? Like, you can go from like the height of your relationship and feeling like you're on cloud 9 and like, this is the one for me and blah, blah, to like just nothing. Like, I just want to get out of here. It's just,
and that scares me when I think about that, just like how quickly feelings can change and how much you invest in a relationship. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're not anymore. Like, that's why I still talk to all my exes. Oh, because I think I have this like fear of, I put so much, you put so much, we were so much. Right. And now like, I just crossed you on the street and we can't speak. Like, the idea of that like really bothers me. Right. And so like, I make it a point like, oh no, I invested. We are friends for life. They've all been on the show. Yeah.
Oh, I've heard. Yeah. Okay.
So, okay. You were at a place where you were engaged, you got the house, the ring, you were about to have the whole fairy tale and it didn't work out the way you wanted it to. Now moving forward, what did you learn and what would you do differently in your next relationship?
Yeah, great question. Well, I mean, I've been dating since I've been out here, and I find myself just being more honest. Know thyself. Like, we all have, baggage or something, like, you know what I mean? So just being more upfront with that. Now I'm a little more, and some people may not like this, but I'm a little more straightforward. Like,
as you should be.
Yeah, but sometimes it's like it catches people off guard, and they're like there's one guy I was talking to. Somehow credit, money came up, and this was like our second conversation ever. Didn't even meet in person. I was like, oh, speaking of that, what's your credit score?
I think that's fine.
But a lot of people, most people don't talk about finances. It's like, oh, what's your credit score? And his was good. So.
I want to see your test results. I want to see your credit score. And I want to know how you feel about your mama.
Listen, they all, mean something.
What else have you changed? You've been more honest and upfront.
Yeah, more honest and upfront. And just being more open. So you may not necessarily look the way, normally open to, but you never know because, you never know. Like, people can surprise you.
So do you still want to get married? And have you let go of the timeline in which you do so?
I don't think I completely let go of it, but I do, of course, definitely want to still get married. But also I'm coming to the realization, like, what happens if I don't? Like, at this point, I'm 30, what am I, 32. So, I mean, I haven't let go of it completely, but I'm like, just what does it really mean?
Nothing.
You know what I mean?
It means nothing.
Yeah.
It means you didn't get married. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like, let's say that there was a rule that was like, okay, all women had to get married. They had to get married by 30. Mm-hmm. That's just the life rule. Mm-hmm. Now, let's say that everybody actually did that. Imagine how different the world would be. Like, we might not have Oprah. If Oprah was like, the rule was you get married and then you have kids. Like, we might not have, you know what I'm saying? Like, we might not have Mother Teresa. Like, there's all sorts of things that like would change if we all just decided like this is the only path. But it's just not the only path.
That's what society does. That's the pressure they put on you. So yeah, I think everyone, including myself, you have to think, okay, what society wants versus what I really, really want. And I know for me, that's really, really, what I want. Like, I want that partnership. I want that common goal, us working towards something. Like, I don't want it for superficial reasons, which plenty of people want it for superficial reasons. Just because they feel like they should, or because they want pretty pictures to post or whatever. Like, I'm doing it for real, like, solid reasons.
And what the thing you want doesn't necessarily entail marriage. Like, you're like, I want a partnership and I want common goals. That's not necessarily like
marriage.
It could be like we're together and we start an amazing business together, or like whatever it may be, but it doesn't like, it doesn't have one label in one box, in my opinion. Well, that was an amazing story. And thank you for coming on finally, because we talked about it and sharing that. Can people reach out to you on Instagram or anything?
It's that girl Chica. So THAT_GIRL_Chica CHIKA.
And thank you guys so much for listening tonight. And you can reach me at Tanisha Wood on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And until next time, wish me love. Hello again, my lovely listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of DRL. If you like the show, be sure to go on iTunes and leave a rating and also write a review. And don't forget to share with your friends and tell them all about DRL. Thank you so much for supporting.